Thanks to today's sponsor, Cast AI. Cast AI is a Kubernetes cost monitoring and management platform that reduces cloud costs by over 60%. Cast AI likely has the fastest autoscaler on the market, and it's really good at scaling down due to Invictor. You can benefit from automated node selection and spot instances with fallback to on-demand. It's a top-notch Kubernetes automation platform with free cost monitoring and cost optimization modules. Optimize your first cluster for free by going to cast.ai/Bret Fisher. Thanks, Cast AI, for supporting this show. Hello. Welcome to the show, the internet.
Hello, hello.
We're here to celebrate the end of the year of this show. And the holidays.
Yay.
And we have special guests. I have guests on both sides. Let's go around the room. I'm Bret. This is my channel. If you haven't seen us live before, we do this every Thursday. Not in all this wonderful accoutrement that we have, but we're all dressed up today for the holidays because technically this will maybe not be the last show before the holidays, but you know, it's close. It's like the holiday party for your office. It's approximately somewhere before the holidays happen. So we've all got our little coffee mugs that we've brought today, maybe or maybe not holiday themed. And we're going to talk about our favorite tech and DevOps of this year. Then we're going to talk about next year. So stay tuned. I'm Bret. Nirmal, introduce yourself.
I'm Nirmal. I've been on this show before, at least a couple of times.
Few.
Good to be back and excited to dig into this year of what we liked and looking forward to the next year.
Yeah. You've seen Nirmal around. He's the new co-host. At some point, you won't be the new co-host anymore. I guess that'll maybe be next month. We'll move you into the regular co-host.
Ooh.
The normal
upgrade. Distro upgrade.
That's right. You are the upgrade, and you're basically what makes this show worth still watching. So on the other side, we have Melissa. Melissa, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Bret. Really, really cool to be here. Really happy to meet you two, and I'm excited to do this show with you. This is going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and we're all Docker Captains here. Not that that's a requirement. It just so happens that the three of us are in the Docker Captain program. So we're fans of containers, hence this show. That's why Docker's in the name of the show, because we keep talking about it. Melissa, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you at today?
Yeah, of course. I'm calling in from Denver, Colorado, and it's really cold here right now. So I have my lovely Christmas scarf on to keep warm.
I mean, there is snow in the background, so.
Yeah. If I were to show you my window, there'd be snow in the other background as well. Pretty cool. But it's cold enough. My car died this morning. That was not as much fun for me. But so this is the highlight of my day since I had to deal with that this morning.
Staying inside.
So looking forward to this. I work for JFrog. I'm a developer advocate there currently. And I've been doing that for about 3 years. So that's a lot of traveling and going to conferences, speaking on various topics. And before that, though, I've been a developer for years and years and years. And when I was an intern right out of college, the very first job I had was a services job. So we just basically did whatever came in the door, right? So I think my very first project was actually a Ruby on Rails project. And so I got a lot of experience with different stuff. And I got to work in C# for a while. My first coding was C++, so way back then. And then, of course, Java came into play. So I became a Java champion a couple of years ago. That's been exciting. A great community of people. Really, really love all of them. So, yeah, that's more about me.
Nice. Well, we're excited to have you here. We've been talking about this for months, I feel like. And for those that have not seen this show before, let's do a little housekeeping, not house cleaning. We don't need to clean anymore, just keeping. We're keeping the house. This show turns into a podcast. Did you know that? Let's go check that out real quick. Nirmal looks excited. So we have the podcast comes from this show. You'll get to hear about this stuff in case you can't join it live or don't want to watch YouTube. You can also get this in audio-only format in your favorite podcast player. And then we have a loot box store. You'll probably see merchandising everywhere, all on the YouTube.
I get that reference.
Yes. And you can now get your show T-shirt. We don't really have a show T-shirt. We need a dedicated show T-shirt. But we have Foxy, the pirate that's a fan of Kubernetes. Of course, it makes total sense. And then my favorite one, the Sneakernet shirt, which if you were around in the 90s, this is how we actually got stuff around as we physically moved it. Not Ethernet, Sneakernet.
Sneakernet. Right. Not to be confused with one of my favorite movies, Sneakers.
That's a fantastic movie. And it still holds up pretty well today. Like 30 or 40 years later. We also have a newsletter. So in case you're wondering, how can I find out when Melissa's back on the show? The answer is you get on the newsletter. So all the links are below. It's a weekly newsletter. It just tells you who's going to be on the show, what's going to be on the podcast, what open source did I just make, what course updates did I do. It's really just about the stuff that we're doing here. None of the other rest of the internet. Usually we maybe put a tweet in there from someone else, but it's not we're not a news organization. We're not sitting here listing you all the things that happened this week. It's just all this wonderful stuff you can't see because it's too small on the screen. What am I doing? So Nirmal and I were live from KubeCon, so we, of course, had to talk about that. And, you keep going back in time live from DockerCon. It's just basically Kubernetes and Docker all day long around here. And you can jump into that. Did you know also that we have a Hangout Discord server where everyone's chilling before and after this event? And the cool thing is in case you don't want the email, you can go into Discord and you can click on the event details. And you can see, hey, look, there's us. 16,000 DevOps people hanging out there. I heard Melissa's going to join because she thought it was cool, but that was just a rumor. She's got some knowledge. And there's channels for all of the DevOps topics you can imagine, including one dedicated to CI, which I'm sure we're going to talk about CI/CD today. I just summarize it all as automation channel. We have an automation channel. People are asking all the questions about anything automation. So that's housekeeping. You're welcome. And the rest of the show is up to us. So if you have questions, of course, we always take questions. We enjoy your questions. Anything about DevOps. What is your favorite DevOps related or tech related thing that you maybe use in your job for doing DevOps or software engineering? What was your favorite thing of 2023? I want to see that in chat. We're going to talk about it, but we also want your ideas and your votes for what you think. You can't just say AI. That's a cop-out.
What?
You can't just say
That's
AI.
That's all I was going to say, Brett.
You have to go back. Go back. Sit in the corner and think about what you really mean. Like ChatGPT 4 with image and web search. You can say that.
So I can't just say AI. I have to say something specific. Okay.
A tool, a product, a technique. Maybe you're all about stable diffusion or something. I don't know.
Ooh, unstable diffusion.
All right. We're going to pick on Melissa. What is your... we all have a lot of things, but like, what would you like to open with as like 2023? Something you loved.
Something I loved. So,
in DevOps or tech or...
This is by all means not new. It's a little tool that I brought up again because with all of this new stuff coming out, all of these new images being created, especially, all the new AI, ML, Docker images and everything, I really like to take things apart and see how they work. So I'm not satisfied with just clumping a bunch of libraries together and just magically tossing them all in a container and everything just works. I want to tear it apart and see exactly what's running under the covers. I think that's going to become more and more important to do too in the future, especially I'm sure we're going to start talking about security here because that's a pretty big deal in 2023. But anyway, I was looking at an image recently. I think it was just like the latest TensorFlow image. And I wanted to do some customizations to it, add some like a little bit of training and stuff like that. And I needed to make it as small as possible. And I also wanted to make sure I was using like a secure repo, which meant I needed to pass in credentials, but I wanted to build this image in a way that other people could use it. So I needed to see how it was built. So I could use, something like multi-stage build or something, to make it really nice and sleek. And I didn't go hunting for the Docker file, or even if I did, I wouldn't have found what I wanted. I wanted to see the actual files that are being added. So I went to this little tool. It's called Dive. I found this several years ago, but I've been using it a lot this year. And it's very cool. You're able to bring up your image. You can view all the layers, but it's more than that. You get the actual file structure on the right side. You can see on the screen there. And you can tell as you move through the layers which directories and files have been modified, which have been added, which have been removed. It's pretty cool. I really like it. So I've used it a lot. That's my favorite.
This is an oldie but a goodie, actually. I mean, and it's one of those things where people have come up to me. Have you seen Dive? Have you played with Dive? Like, it is one of those tools where if you've used it, and you tend to spread the love because you just want everyone else to use it. It's very useful.
Yep.
So what specifically do you like the most out of Dive? Like, what's the use case where you find yourself going to it? Like, is it just because you're finding these images, you don't know what they are, or
I mean, well, like I said, in one point I needed to find out or avoid, packing any credentials or anything in there. And
right.
I was using a base image. I wasn't sure how it was being built, but I needed my own custom image. So in order to do the, like a multi-stage build, I needed to know exactly what directories I needed to be paying attention to, because there's so much magic behind the scenes going on. Stuff gets installed for you, put in certain directories. Sometimes, maybe not the default place you'd expect. So I just needed to be able to, confirm, figure out where everything lives, make sure nothing else was being added that I didn't expect, and be able to copy the appropriate places forward into my final image.
That's awesome. I think that's also useful for folks that are maybe just getting started with containers and want to see how, you end up pulling containers from all kinds of places that as you're experimenting, as you're trying new pieces of software out, things that are delivered as containers, and then maybe want to see what patterns people are using to build their containers and how they're built. So it's a great tool to kind of just even learn what's going on.
One thing that was brought to my attention way back when I first started building containers, because I didn't really understand all the details about how the layers worked and all of that. I just, I'm one of these people that I just want to get something to work first, right? Sometimes you get excited and you move on. You need to go back and figure out, okay, what exactly did I do? And one thing that became really apparent to me is, like, you can't, when you're building an image, it's not like a script. It's and I've seen this before in a lot of examples that people do where their first time, they might put some credentials in there and then think that, oh, I can just delete them later in the Docker file. And then I'm good because I've removed all my stuff. I did an intermediate build or whatever, and then I remove stuff at the end, so I'm fine. Well, try bringing up that image in Dive. You're going to see those files and directories in there because they still exist in the previous layers, right? They aren't actually removed.
Yeah, in fact, I've used this tool in a real project, and that's when I first discovered that if I installed Node.js from the official Debian package, that it also installed Python. And I only knew that. It's not like it was telling me. I just only knew that because I was looking at the layers, and it was like, this layer is a lot bigger than I think it should be. And then I start diving through, and I go into the bin directory, and there's Python's right in there, and I'm like, this is a Node image. Why do I need Python? So that led to a discovery that I talk about now in my Node.js talks, because I want people to, like, realize there's a whole bunch of extra stuff in here that you don't even ask for. There's something about the Python needing to be there to install Node or part of Node or something. There's a Python script. Anyway, I've complained a lot. Nobody's done anything about it. But it was Dive. It was Dive that did it. So, yay Dive.
That's awesome.
That's a good one.
It is a really good one.
I'm going to throw a pro tip on that real quick, by the way, on Dive. If Dive is good for exploring, but it's not great. It doesn't really have features to like remove. I wish it could sort of like you just delete in there. I don't think it has this feature yet. I could just say delete this directory, and then it sort of breaks it all apart, takes that thing out, and puts it back together as an image. That would be super. That'd probably be a paid feature. But something else we also talk about a lot here is the Slim Toolkit. And so the Slim Toolkit and Slim AI, the company behind it, if you're using Dive and you realize there's a bunch of extra stuff in here that I definitely don't want, but I don't know how to get rid of it, and I don't want to go mucking with the Docker file or try to figure out how to do everything all in one large run statement so that I can delete things and then add things and that whole mess. Slim AI, who should just become a partner, Slim AI, because I talk about them all the time, they should sponsor us. That actually can do that. It can actually go in and pull stuff out after the image is built, and they use a bunch of analysis and other things depending on whether you're using the Slim Toolkit free or the Slim AI, the paid version. Anyway, I just thought I'd mention that because that a lot of times people use Dive and they go, okay, great, there's too much stuff in here. Now what? What do I do now?
And alluding to some of the things that we're going to be talking about today around software supply chain, SBOMs, also machine learning, container images. Container images are starting to become big and meaty and like have a lot of things in them, a lot of dependencies. I mean, that's the flexibility you get from containers is tying your dependencies in there. But these tools become even more relevant as time goes on because of the complexity that we're putting into the containers over the years. So we're now at that stage where deeper analysis is kind of part of the work that we do on a daily basis. So
yeah, I feel like it's like you're leveling up. Like when we all start out, like Melissa was saying, we don't really know what's in there. We feel like it's a lot of magic. We may not know why it's a gig or 2 gig. I've had several images, Ruby images in particular, or Node images where they're 2 gig in size, and they have a ton of developer tools that don't need to be there. And yeah, so all these tools, we've done several episodes on them. I feel like we should just have an annual plan to do this episode of let's break down an image and figure out how to make it smaller, and just like do this on the show. That'd be fun.
That's a great show. Yeah, put that on the list.
Okay, put it on the list. I don't have a piece of paper. Okay, I'll put it on the list later. Nirmal, what do you have a pick or a topic for 2023 that's like? I feel like there's so many ways we could slice this. We could say your favorite tool. We could say what do you think won in DevOps in 2023? Like what tool or thing captured our imagination? Of course, again, can't just say AI, but whatever your definition is of the thing that you would like to throw into the hat into the ring for 2023.
Yeah, thank you. Such a tough question. So ML, I'm going to say for looking forward to 2024. So AI, ML, I'll save that. I'll spare you that news, Bret. I think for this past year, Open Telemetry is a project that I've been working with the Open Telemetry project and tool set for my day job, and also just interested in the observability and monitoring in general. And that's something that actually on this show, Bret, we don't really talk about that much around observability and monitoring, and maybe that's something that we should put on the list for next year as well. But for those that don't know, Open Telemetry is a CNCF project upstream, and it's kind of the one observability agent to rule them all kind of idea, right? So if you're using any kind of monitoring tools, either paid SaaS PaaS platforms for monitoring or open source, such as like Prometheus or Grafana, oftentimes they come with some kind of, for Prometheus, you need a Prometheus server to scrape metrics, or you need some kind of agent to collect telemetry, right? Traces, metrics, logs, etc. And Open Telemetry was kind of, it's meant to standardize the collection of telemetry. So it started with the merging of I think, two of the upstream tracing open source projects. I think it was Open Census and Open Tracing, if I remember correctly. Those got merged and then brought into Open Telemetry. So it focused initially on tracing, which is the instrumentation of your application code that allows you to see what activity is going on through a request, what services are being called through a single request, your dependencies, like front end calling a back end, calling a database, and then all the way back. And then metrics and then logs were added over the years. And OpenTelemetry is gaining a lot. It's gained a lot of steam over this past year. A lot of the customers I talked to, a lot of the activity at KubeCon was oriented toward OpenTelemetry adoption, and with logs being now supported in upstream, it covers a lot of the telemetry that you might be collecting in one kind of agent, and simplifies the agent deployment for collecting the telemetry that you need. So if you are in the process of building out and scaling some kind of Kubernetes or container based solution in your day job or other job, and you want to do some observability, take a look at OpenTelemetry as that agent. So that's my pick for this past year. A side note to that, and maybe we'll do another round, is ebpf. ebpf has again, it was there last year in 2022, 2023 again, another good ebpf year. A lot more use cases, a lot more solutions using ebpf. So that's something that's hot in 2023, and I think will continue to be hot in 2024. So can talk more about ebpf, if we want to loop back around, but those are my highlights for 2023. So I'd love to know in the comments if anyone is using OpenTelemetry, taking a look at it, or looked at ebpf or using ebpf-based solutions. Put that in the comments, and if you have any questions about it, would love to know what those are. On top of that, yep. Go ahead.
Okay, hold that thought for a second. OpenTelemetry, we have had shows on it, but we haven't done any sort of deep dive, or it's been very product focused, right? Because OpenTelemetry, there are products that adhere to it. So we've had products on the show before, but we're due for another one. The problem is this show's going back now 5 years, and I'm like, yeah, we've had that on the show, but then I look and it's like 2020. So everything has changed since 2020 or 2019 or whatever the last time they were on the show. So definitely OpenTelemetry and observability. Those are themes. You're absolutely right. Like KubeCon was saturated with that, as well as everyone having an ebpf logo, especially in the security space or the observability space, because they all are trying to enable the ebpf conduit to the kernel or whatever. And we've had Liz, like if anyone's interested, go back in this channel, not right now, but like later, go back in this channel, search this channel from the main channel page for anything Liz Rice. Of course, you can just search YouTube for anything Liz Rice. She's been talking about ebpf. I think we had her on the show in like 2019 or 2020 talking about it, and we keep having her back. We have other people on that talk about it. You don't, unless you're a developer who's going to develop kernel, things that talk to the kernel itself through syscalls and stuff. Unless you're that, you like, if you're like me, you don't actually have to know the depths of ebpf. You can really just know that the tools you're using have modernized themselves to go to ebpf. And I think that's part of the confusion too, is people think they need to download ebpf or install it or something, and you don't need to do that anymore. I think all the latest kernels that we're all probably using have been enabled for ebpf. So
I think a good way of highlighting the difference is like ebpf is kind of like what the container runtime is doing for us when we're using something like Docker. Like, you don't necessarily need to go into the depths of namespaces and C groups and IP tables and things like that the container runtime is doing to make the container or run the container. ebpf is kind of like that layer, right? So you might be using it, but you might not know that you're using it. But
There's actually,
there,
by the
and I
way,
think
sorry
the
to
use
interrupt.
cases are still early days. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say there is this documentary. I'll put this in. This
Oh,
was at
that's right.
KubeCon.
This just came out, right?
Yeah, this came out at KubeCon. And if you haven't seen, honestly, I watched this and I feel like I want to watch ebpf the movie. I mean, this is 30 minutes, but I feel like it's the trailer to the movie, and it's got all the players. It's got some of the founders of the ebpf project in there. Liz Rice is in there sometimes talking about, and it's really cool because it actually does talk about this person talking to this person, and this person at Google's talking to this person at this other company, and they have this idea, and people don't really get it, so they have to get more people on board, and they have to bring in more kernel influencers. I don't know if they use that term, but people, and then eventually they get it merged, and they can't believe it, and then things start to happen, and new tools show up that are way faster than the previous generation of tools. Oh, there was Liz. And I love it because I feel like I've never actually had to develop anything in ebpf, but I feel like I know enough to talk about it now. So
just enough to be dangerous.
That's right. That's right. So it's a really good,
Bret,
really good video.
Back to you. What is your top thing for 2023?
Well, these are all great themes. I love, you talked about, we didn't mention S to the bomb. I mean, security for me was a theme of the year. If you look back, we're going to talk about Chain Guard, but mine is security supply chain tooling for mortals, and that's why I started the year down in Tampa for Civo Navigate. I did a talk on, I think, 30 different tools that normal non-security people could actually use to tighten down their container or supply chain and everything that goes in the container, how you build the container, how you deploy the container, how you secure the repos, how you secure the cluster. There was a lot going on in there. It was a horrible talk. I don't recommend it because it was just like rapid fire. But it was meant to help get people at a meta level instead of talking on one talk that's all about one tool, and this talk's all about one tool. And I mentioned both Slim AI and Slim Toolkit, as well as I'm going to bring it up here, as well as Chain Guard images, one of my favorite things of 2023.
And I think someone
mentioned it already.
Moz, yeah, Moz. Shout out to Moz. This is the same thing you thought of as the top thing for 2023. Go for it, Bret.
Yeah, so we had Chain Guard on the show in 2022 when it was all new, and I think the show title was Wolfie, which is the Linux distribution for container images that's behind the Chain Guard images. So the title's a little different now. It's called Chain Guard Images, but they have a website. And to me, this is becoming, or has become for many people, the new official images. Like instead of Docker Hub official images, especially for programming languages, I come here. And they're as secure, or they're better. They're more secure than Alpine, but more capable and compatible than Alpine. So they're more like a Debian image in terms of compatibility with the C libraries, but they have the minimal lockdown, zero CVE policy, even tighter than what Alpine does. And so you can just, they didn't have a website before, it was just kind of a list. So now on this website, you can search for, Node.js or Python or whatever, or all the different major open source images. They're adding more all the time. I can't even keep up anymore. But when you go in there for free, you get access to a lot of the things. If you want to do certain things like pin to a tag and be certain that tag will stay the same over time, or will be updated and always available or whatever. There's certain things that you have to pay for, but you get a lot for free out of it, out of their image distribution. Because essentially what you're doing is using this instead of Docker Hub. And if you just jump in and say, I want to use Python, you can see how to run them. You can see what's in them. You can see all the tags. So it's becoming a really useful resource for anyone who's using official images from Docker Hub, and they maybe have heard me complain about Alpine, so they're scared of Alpine images, which I'm not always a fan. And they know they have a lot of vulnerabilities in their images, and they want to secure down their images to 0 CVEs. Chain guard images is the way to do that. So I don't know. Someone should get a prize for picking that in chat before I mentioned it. The other thing just related to that I'll throw in there, actually not that one. It just happened, I think yesterday, the day before. But there's a new, this is actually a pretty slick tool. I haven't even used it yet, but I'm already advocating for it. They're calling it Digestabot, and there's multiple ways to do this, but what this tool does specifically for me is it will update any images of Docker files, Helm charts. In fact, they have all these different usage options. So any place that you would define a container image by tag or SHA hash, you can now have this running as a cron job in GitHub Actions, updating to the latest every day. The specific thing that I really care about with this is that if you look at this format, something I talked about at DockerCon is if I say I want node : 18.3 or something, and I don't care about the patch version, I just want the patch version to rolling update. Or maybe I care about the patch version, but we sometimes in some of these images in Docker Hub, the underlying base image will get updated to reduce the CVE count while maintaining the same version of the tool inside it. So technically, the image is changing, the SHA hash is changing, and you might be using something 3 months old that's got a lot more CVEs than you really want, a lot more security vulnerabilities. So the way you kind of want to do that, because we all know nowadays we should be pinning to SHA hashes. So the thing that I advocate for is you pin both. So you pin the name of your image and the tag, and you can do whatever you want there. But that tag, once you've put a SHA hash in and pinned it to a specific manifest of an image, this tag actually is ignored by Docker. This latest is ignored. That is only there for humans. So it's just a helpful label to remind us where we got this SHA hash from. But over time, that latest is going to keep changing, and the SHA hash will keep changing. So what this GitHub action does is it automates the PR process whenever it finds that the tag doesn't have that SHA hash anymore. So it assumes that if there's a different SHA hash, it must be a newer version of the image, and it will give you a PR to update your Docker files, your Helm charts, your customize, your Kubernetes YAML, all that different stuff. And there are other things to do this, but the one that this does that's unique is it will see the label, and it will go then look up and match the SHA hash and only give you a PR if they don't match. So it's solving a very specific problem for me, because once I've pinned my SHAs, I don't think I could be wrong on this, but I don't think GitHub's Dependabot actually can do that. It can only update tags. It can't update SHA hashes. I could be wrong. It might be a new feature, but last I checked, maybe a year ago, it wouldn't do this. It would only update, like, if I said node 10.2, it would give me a PR for node 10.3 as the label. But it wouldn't understand SHA hashes, I think.
By the way,
anyway,
that sounds like really good swag. A t-shirt that says pin your SHAs.
Pin your SHAs. All right, writing this down. We got I'm putting a list together for the shows next year. And
so we've got, for 2023, we've got the Dive tool, which is awesome. We've got Chain Guard and SBOMs and security tooling. We've got some open telemetry and ebpf as kind of the themes for 2023. What are we looking forward to for 2024? Melissa?
Yeah, I'm at the edge of my seat.
Go for it.
Pick me.
There's so much going on. I can't wait to see what happens next year, because so I've been doing a talk at various conferences, and the title is this. It changes as I go because new stuff keeps coming out, but the title is "Developers Are Not Security Experts." Don't expect them to be. And I talk about the reasons for that, and how, maybe all of these tools that are coming out, I think you had mentioned, they need to be working for people that are not experts, right? They need to be easy for us to use. So I'm really interested in the tools that are coming out, not just the scanners, because The scanners are great. They give you a lot of information, but I mean, the whole list of CVEs, by the time you get that to a developer, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
And it's too much for us to sit down and look at each one and decide whether or not it's important. So the tools that are coming out that are more focused on whether it's applicable to you, applicable to your code base, how you're using it, if you're even using it in a way that makes you vulnerable, that's important to know. So I think all of that information is going to get better with time. So obviously, there's a lot of paid tools out there that are starting to work on this process. For now, you've got your point solutions, you've got your image scanners, you've got like Docker Scout, you've got Sneak has their tool, and JFrog has a tool as well that does this, and they're starting to look more at applicability, figuring out whether it's going to be something that makes you vulnerable or not, so you can make better decisions and prioritize. But security side, there's another project that it's relatively new, and I think more is going to be happening next year. And I discovered it because I started getting involved with the CD Foundation. And probably most of you don't know about that foundation. It's very tiny. It's actually the sister to CNCF. It's also under the Linux Foundation, but it focuses on continuous delivery. So there's a number of projects in here, and I think probably the most famous one in here is Jenkins. This is where the Jenkins project lives. So these are chances to, you can get involved with these foundations, and companies can get involved and support this work with these open source projects to be able to continue to use them in the communities. But one of the projects in here that came from a discussion about interoperability, because we all have our pipelines, our software pipelines, and we're all concerned about, security and moving artifacts from one place to another, getting messages from one tool to another. There are many, many instances where, maybe your pipeline is composed of a bunch of different tools. Not, you don't have like an end-to-end solution because of various reasons. There may be different capabilities you're looking for in different tool sets that specialize. So this project called CD Events, it's actually a spec, and it is starting this conversation about getting all of these tools on the same page as far as how they communicate with one another. And the idea here is to use, very, very much like cloud events. If you're familiar with cloud events, that was a starting point for the CD Events spec. Getting agreement in the community of how you might emit these events and how you would consume these events so that all of these tools can work cleanly together. So definitely something to watch for. Some stuff going on in 2024.
I didn't realize the CD Foundation had this landscape.
Yes. I use these a lot because if you look at the CNCF landscape, it's huge, right? And this one is much smaller, very focused on certain capabilities.
So this is cdevents.dev. I haven't heard of this. This is actually new. I'm excited. I did not realize this existed. Yeah,
they have, if you were to go to this, I think it's in multiple places, but on the CD Foundation website, there's a community calendar, and you can actually join the public events that are displayed there. And so there's a group that works with CD events.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, I put the link in there, cd.foundation, that's in the chat. And there's a community calendar which takes you right to a Google Calendar. And there's several other people in our community that are posting on Twitter about stuff that they're working on with CD Foundation, putting out blog posts. You can actually be like a CD Foundation ambassador or captain or something. If I remember correctly.
That I'm not sure about. I know we have.
There we go. CDF program. Ambassador.
Yeah. We have the ambassador program.
So
it's very.
If you really get involved.
CDF ambassador program.
Yeah. So you could be Java Docker Captain CD ambassador.
Right.
and all the other titles.
That sounds amazing.
Not confusing at all. I've been watching these people for a while. There's actually a newsletter, I believe, that I get. It may actually just be from one of the ambassadors. But there's a lot going on here, and there's like you said, there's a lot of projects. Their project page doesn't seem to want to load for me, so but the landscape does, and there's a lot going on there. There's a lot of projects. So we've already had a vote for Argo CD, a couple of votes in the chat. Of course, that's my vote for how to deploy in Kubernetes. But we don't always deploy to Kubernetes, and we can't always use something like Argo. So, for example, if you don't have access to Git from inside your clusters, you can't yet use Argo unless you use the image updater, which not everybody wants to use. But this is actually cool. I didn't realize that maybe the landscape itself is maybe an open source project. Of course, that makes sense. If it's CNCF, it's open source. And so they're using it themselves. Yep. And it's not quite as busy, so it's nice. All right, that's 2024.
I plus one to you. To your theme, Melissa, I think CI, CD, the pre-Git commit phase of development is going to have a lot of action and activity next year. It's starting to ramp up this year. We had Dagger on earlier or just a few weeks ago, and kind of the recent announcements around Atomic Jar and Test Container. Some of that activity around developer-focused, inner loop, pre-Git commit. I know we just talked about CD, but the CI side of it too, and pre-CI, I think you could say, is going to get a lot of action and activity next year, and excited to see what kind of comes out during the year next year around that space. If you don't mind me going next, Bret. 2024 for me is going to be focused on MLOps. So I think as we've seen a growth in AI, I said it. Do I have to put some like money in a jar or something like that?
You can say it. It just can't be your favorite. You can't cop out and say
okay.
AI.
AI is not my favorite, but robots, remember who your friends are in the future.
Be kind to your AI robots.
I think of machine learning operations. So MLOps is kind of like DevOps applied to machine learning workloads, both on a training and serving side, and data processing training, testing of machine learning models, deploying them, serving them, inference, fine tuning, all those kind of things that are around machine learning operations. I'm very curious to our audience. I would love to see some comments if this is something that you're seeing an interest in, or maybe upskilling around machine learning, just because of the intersection of machine learning with a lot of the products that and services that we're supporting these days and building, and that request coming from folks like data scientists, machine learning engineers, product managers, asking to integrate machine learning features into the applications and systems that we support. So to me, 2024 is going to be a continuation of the maturity of MLOps tools as it pertains to Kubernetes, cloud, containers, etc. Containers are the foundational part of machine learning ops, right? So we're seeing a lot of the machine learning workloads, both on the training side and the inference side, being utilizing containers as that interoperability, as that thing that gets moved around, which is awesome. But machine learning workloads are bigger, right? Like these models are huge. I know we used to talk about like Windows containers being like really big, and kind of like hand waving, it's okay, we can do containers with 40 gig images, but now that's becoming more and more likely with these machine learning workloads. So I'm going to do a shout out for the Ray framework. That's something that I'm looking into and interested in. I think we're going to see more of these MLOps and distributed frameworks for doing distributed training, distributed inference, squeezing the most out of the compute that we have and these expensive, GPUs and other technologies that we want to use for machine learning, getting the most out of them. So Let's see if I can find a link here. I'll put a link to the Ray framework here. But that's my theme for next year. I think we're going to see more and more of these machine learning workloads in the DevOps, Docker, container, Kubernetes world that we inhabit. So, Bret, I think next year we're going to try to tackle some of these topics and learn together around them.
We definitely have not. I can say this confidently. We have not had an MLOps episode.
Yes.
It's the one thing it's like, yeah, we definitely have thrown that word around, but not had a show on it. In fact, I was just looking here at all the times that Docker on their own blog has mentioned MLOps, because a lot of times I don't think of Docker or as a container as like solving my MLOps problems or working on it or whatever. But Docker's been talking increasingly about it more this year. And they're probably going to talk about it even more next year.
Yeah. And to that point, I know you've had some of the folks from Olama on your show before, and they were at DockerCon. I'm going to shout out to Olama as well. I've been using that tool to do use some machine learning models locally on my MacBook Pro, and I'm really liking that tool. It makes it really easy to download a model and have it up and running in a usable way locally. And kind of just helps kick the tires on different models as we're learning how to use these new technologies in our world, right? So I think we're going to see a lot more of these kind of things too next year, and both on the MLOps side, right, to get to the point where you have a machine learning model, and then also tools to use machine learning models, pre-trained and fine-tuning them and making them our own. So excited to see where that world goes next year.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Olama. We're definitely we're planning a show for them next year. Docker announced it at DockerCon as they partnered with Olama and a couple other tools to create sort of a AI/ML toolkit kind of thing for Docker desktop. So if there are sessions, I think, or videos from DockerCon if people are interested. Excuse me. But they don't just have great software, but Olama also has great stickers and images. Like you can actually get these stickers if you go to one of the conferences.
Sticker is the best. Yep.
Yeah, we'll have Matt Williams on the show for sure. Back on the show, he was on a lot this year before they invented Olama, and now that he's been too busy since Olama to come back on the show. So we're definitely going to talk about that, I think. And then at KubeCon, they showed a demo in the first 15 minutes of the first keynote on Kubernetes with Olama, but I don't have a URL for that. I don't know if you remember. There was something like LLM starter kit or something like that.
Yeah.
If someone throws that in chat or somewhere, I can find that.
The Gen AI starter kit.
Yeah.
Which I think had Olama, LangChain, Docker Desktop, and something else. The vector database. Oh, forgetting the name of it.
It's on the tip of my tongue. I'm imagining standing at their booth at DockerCon because I was really dumb about it. I needed somebody to explain it to me.
I want to say it's like Neo something.
Neo4j.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Neo4j, I think.
I should have known that their booth was right next to mine.
Perfect.
We're good friends with Neo4j.
Yeah, so
Conrad saying he uses.
I think that's going to be another thing for 2024 is Neo4j, vector databases. It seems like with machine learning, data processing, I think we can no longer say only do stateless on Kubernetes. Stateful workloads are starting to dominate the Kubernetes landscape. So yeah, that's now a thing, and we're gonna have to deal with it.
I'm gonna rapid fire some of these questions in chat. Dan saying, "Oops, oh. Traffic Labs on the show." Yes, Dan, we can have Traffic Labs on the show. I'm technically still a traffic ambassador as long as they haven't kicked me out. So we should be able to do that next year. I'm actually been waiting for them to release 3.0. They've been on the cusp of releasing Traffic 3.0 for all year long. So I've been kind of wanting to wait for when that releases because it's going to change the way that traffic works with Kubernetes. It's obviously going to have lots of new features. So we'll do that. Moz is asking for ML Ops DevOps training materials. I don't know if you mentioned ML Ops. Now you got to give our people some links. So maybe Nirmal can help you with that in chat while we're talking.
I will find something.
I need to learn ML Ops because I don't know anything. So I need that stuff too. Dan saying, show how to use WASM. Definitely WebAssembly, cloud native WebAssembly. You heard me talk about it on a recent podcast. Nirmal and I talked about it at KubeCon with Nigel Poulton, who's one of the Docker captains that's trying to be our conduit to what's happening in WASM for cloud native. I'm calling it cloud native WASM. I don't know if that's the real term yet, but we're calling basically when you want to run WebAssembly apps on servers, not in browsers, but on servers in Kubernetes. I'm calling that cloud native WASM. So we had a show on that a year ago. I don't feel like a terrible amount has changed in terms of people that are operating Kubernetes and stuff. Mm-hmm. We've got maybe a few more runtimes out there that are more popular or that work with Kubernetes. But I'm not a developer I've run build tools that turned it into WebAssembly, but I am not a WebAssembly expert. So we'll have to dive more into that once we see some new capabilities. I just realized, by the way, we need to do that Inspector Gadget show next year. So yes. we learned about this tool at KubeCon, great name, Inspector Gadget, which is ebpf. It's to me, it's like Argo CD for ebpf tools. I'm not sure how to describe it, but it's a deployment and management tool.
Why don't we bring them on and we can learn what it is?
Yeah. So we're going to do that. I got to write this down. It's Inspector Gadget with a K. Here we go. Yep. So that one, we're gonna have them on. They don't know it yet. We actually asked for someone to be on the show, but we don't have a date set. But we're gonna have them on the show to talk about this because the operator in me is always excited when we have a new technology that we can possibly run in containers, and in this case, because it has to have so many additional security parameters around it, more access to the kernel than maybe your default app, it does require special handling. And up until now, we've had to fall back to old legacy tooling for managing all this in your clusters. And this is trying to solve that. It's a great idea. It's not really a standard yet. They're just trying to make a consensus around how we all manage our ebpf tooling. And it's a pretty cool idea. So we'll have to have them on the show. I'm going to throw out a wild card for me. I'm not going to talk about what I'm looking forward to in terms of developer or DevOps tooling. I'm just going to mention a consumer app that I'm very excited about for being a DevOps person, engineer, someone who has to work in tech in a browser all day. And that's just going to be the browser I'm using. I haven't had a whole show on this, but I mention it every once in a while. And people go, yeah, I've heard about this browser, but I haven't tried it. Well, Arc is out. It's now 1.0. Anyone can download it. And they just started accepting Windows people, which we've all been waiting for. And arc.net, I will send you all there. I get nothing. I don't think I get anything for sharing an invite code, but maybe I'll see if I can. There's a special invite code. Give
Bret,
the friend.
I've never heard you
Arc.
mention this browser before. What do you most like about it?
Here's a link to the download browser. It gives me a little chat. Okay, so I'll put that in chat. I feel like you're giving me a layup. So real quick, Arc browser. Why do we care? Like, we've all had Chrome for 20 years, and we've all tried to change. I used to use Firefox. I was using Mozilla before that, Navigator before that. If you go back in the 90s. I haven't changed my default browser. I don't know about either one of you. I've tried to change to Safari several times. In the last few years, I've tried to change back to Firefox, and it's a struggle bus. There's various incompatibilities, extensions. Not everything works right, or if there's compatibility with websites because we have an imperfect internet. And Arc takes the Chrome engine, Chromium, and they wrap it in a brand new UI that will sync all your tabs across all your devices. But that's just the entry point. That's what gets you in the door, and you're like, oh, cool. So it does like everything else. Well, I used to use Chrome bookmark tabs or whatever you want to call those, pin tabs, and I always thought they kind of sucked. So what you can see here is each one of my, these are called stages, I believe. No, spaces. So each one of my spaces has all my tabs for that particular project or topic. So if I'm doing my business admin and I need to go over to my Amazon, my wish list for Christmas, or searching why my new Xbox power cord is loose, that's over here, and it's a different color, and I do my admin stuff. And if I swipe, I go to another space, and this is my company, my email, this is my course management. So you can imagine all the different parts of your life, and all these things are synced to your phone. They're coming to Windows, so it'll sync across it, and it's near instant sync. Plus, it's a wonderful UI. It's got the best UI. Very minimal, even more minimal than Chrome. And the thing I'm excited about for 2024, where are we going? Back to YouTube, is the fact that there are now a ton of AI features in it, including, and you've been seeing these throughout the show, everything you do in this browser is via the little pop-up. And you can search anything here, including, how do I install Olama? I can ask ChatGPT straight from the browser search bar. That's built in. So it's going to give me, it may not. Oh, look, it's actually going to tell me something. I was afraid it was going to say I don't know about it yet. It's too soon. So it's got AI features built in. If I'm looking at search, so if I go to Google, I just search up, how do I fix my power cord problem? When I hover over any link, it gives me an AI summary, including images, if necessary, of that without having to go there. So any link on any web page is instantly summarizable, if that's a thing, summarizable. If I search a page and it finds nothing, I can ask the AI about the content on the page, and it will. So if I don't want to read the page, I can just ask it to summarize while I'm on the page, and it will do it. And it's got all these extra little features. If you go into Max, these are all free, by the way. I can have it automatically rename tabs to what the AI thinks the tab title should be. It can rename my downloads to be what it thinks is what it looks in the file, summarizes the file in the title of the file name. These are things you didn't know you needed in a browser. And it's got, every month they feel like they're releasing more AI features. So it's my new favorite. It's been my default browser since the beginning of the year. I've said it. I'm done. Go get Arc.
I think you should approach Arc browser.
Yeah. Like have them on the show, talk about the engineering side.
There you go.
You had me at that tab organization. I mean, I'm one of those that has multiple windows open with a gazillion tabs in each, and I don't want to close any of them because I need them.
Yep. But you don't want them sitting there. You don't want them minified or something. Exactly. Yeah. And I'm very much that way. I love the Safari tab syncing they did a couple years ago, but it was still Safari. And this, because it's Chromium, it runs all the extensions. It does everything that you need out of Chrome. But their attitude as a company is sort of, they want to get us away from using Google as our central point of going to the internet and being served ads and shopping links all the time. And they're very privacy focused, even though they don't claim this is like a privacy browser. So they're very much not wanting Google to, like there's link. They don't want necessarily the bad rep that Chrome has had in the past. And if people are interested more about how the company works, it's called the Browser Company of New York, which is an amazing company name. But over on YouTube, if you want to learn more about them, they have a channel, and they will put like portions of their board meetings on here. They are very a very open and young company, a startup in San Francisco, but also based in New York City. And they have great videos. This guy that you see in here, he's the CEO, founder. And one of the coolest things they do is they have the engineers that make a feature for the browser come in and do a little video on making of the feature for the browser. They're also porting the Swift language to Windows so that they can make this browser, which is traditionally on Mac, using the Swift language, which is fast and has great UI. They're porting Swift to Windows so they can natively write it instead of in C++, where we get a lot of security problems. They want to develop it in a more secure language by default, which is Swift, evidently. And they have a lot of engineering details in here, including the lead engineer on that migration or the open source toolkit they're building for that. So if you're an engineer wanting to learn about how browsers are built, this is actually a great channel. Anyway, I'm a fan.
I think we should have him on the show, Bret.
Yeah. What is it like? What is I would love to talk about the CI/CD of that. Like, you're making a browser. We've all got to download it. You're shipping every week. They also ship update videos and amazing READMEs with it every week. So they've got a really unique delivery pipeline for how we all get updates on Mac.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I'd be interested in watching that one.
Yeah. All right. Any last before we wrap this up? Anyone in chat? Did we miss your questions? Anyone else in the show? Do you have a last late entry thing for 2024? Another thing that didn't make the list?
I'm just gonna shout out to my mom. Hello, Mom.
Hey, moms.
Oh, and I also want to shout out to Beth for helping you make the show and all the people that are on your show.
This is my wife's work. This wonderful little Christmas display, and she got us all together. So if it wasn't for her, we would all not be here together. It'd be disorganized.
So another thing for 2024. There's so much. It's kind of we've got a lot of stuff to keep on top of for next year. So I think the main thing I am looking forward to is continuing to co-host with you, Bret, and diving into all kinds of new territory with you on the show. So my main thing for 2024 is to ask the audience to come with your questions, come with topics, themes, things that you want to explore, and we'll do our best to dig into those topics. So that's my ask, my last ask for next year.
If you're watching this and you haven't put it in chat, or if you're watching it after the fact, you can always put it as a comment on things you'd like to see in the world of cloud native DevOps. If we had a theme on this channel, it would be cloud native DevOps.
Yes.
So, yeah, we've got.
How about you, Melissa? Any last minute?
No pressure.
2024.
No pressure. No, it's been a pleasure being on here with you guys. I learned a couple new things. I'm definitely going to go check out that new browser for sure. I'm knee deep. Well, I can't say knee because I'm pretty short. I'm this deep above my head in learning all of the MLOps stuff, the new workflows, the tool sets and everything, because it's quite a different stack than what I'm used to as, developing in. So I'm interested in learning new stuff. I'm looking at SageMaker right now, AWS SageMaker, and just trying to understand, how that is set up and how you're able to do, your training and your inferences, all the infrastructure that is set up already for you. It's pretty cool to check that out.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Looking forward to what's new.
So you're going to come back on and teach us MLOps? Is that what you're saying?
Sure. Yeah.
Ooh, yes.
That would be fun.
It's on the internet now. You have to do it.
I'm committed.
There we go.
Nice. Anton, you got a last late entry question. Actually, I saw it earlier, but I kind of skipped it, Anton. Sorry, I didn't really have a good answer. Asking, how do you run non-ARM stuff on ARM, essentially? And if you don't have an image that supports ARM, you're either going to, you got two options, really. You're going to have to recompile everything, or just find the source code of those dependencies you have and recompile them in ARM. That's the hard mode. Or use QEMU, which will affect performance. And you can use QEMU on an ARM server to run Intel AMD x86 processes on your ARM server, but you will get, I would say, a pretty significant performance loss. So you maybe could start with QEMU. You have to install that manually on your Linux servers, and you have to configure Docker to use it. You can't really put different binaries in the same image. You can't have ARM and AMD or x86 64 and ARM64 in the same image. You want to do that. So either keep it one or the other. Keep it Intel for now and use QEMU. And then once you've rebuilt everything and you have your own custom pipeline to rebuild it all, that would be my recommendation. So
Yes. But
that was a wild card right there. So
that was a great question. And another topic that I think is going to be big on 2024 is more ARM, for sure.
More ARM.
More ARM.
Yeah.
More Graviton.
Yes.
Dan gets in. Actually, it wasn't Dan. Conrad got in and said K6. So yes, we have mentioned K6 several times. We have not dug into it or talked about it. We're going to need to get some K6 project people in to talk about that. That would be a good one. We have a couple testing episodes every year. In fact, someone else talked about Atomic Jar at the very beginning. I totally forgot that one. Someone mentioned what's going on with Atomic Jar. Docker just bought Atomic Jar, which is test containers, which is frameworks to help you with better testing inside specific languages in Docker containers. So if you haven't looked that up, test containers, is it testcontainers.org? .cloud. And we had him on the show a couple years ago, one of the co-founders, and now they're with Docker. So if you're into that, we'll definitely need to have a testing episode for K6 or for test containers or for both again. Because I think one of the things, test containers started with Java, but it didn't have all the languages at the time, I think 2 years ago. It was 2 years and 2 days from the Docker announcement a couple of days ago that we had him on the show. So I'm pretty sure they've got more coverage on different languages. So if you're someone who was on the fence about trying that out, I think they have a longer list nowadays. So anywho, testing, MLOps, AI, and that'll be the themes for 2024. Browsers. Change your browser, people. Give it a shot. Tell me what you hate about it. Tell me what you love and hate. All right. Well, thank you to fine people for being on the show. This has been great. Where can we find you, Melissa, if people want to follow your? Because I know you speak at conferences, or you are at conferences. You hang out in the real world with people. Where can we find you?
Yes. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. Those are the best places to reach out to me. I think my next conference is probably going to be DevNexus in Atlanta. I think that's end of April next year. So I'll be there for sure.
Nice. Yeah, links for these two people are below. Like if you look in the description, if you want to follow them both on X, Twitter, whatever, or follow them on LinkedIn, we're all on all two of those places.
Things.
You can probably find us all on GitHub. It's somewhere in GitHub. And we will be here next week. By the way, next week we have Live Cycle. We're speaking of all things AI. Just bring this up. No, that's not the right website. It's not .dev. So next week we're going to have Live Cycle on the show. And we're going to get some demos on developer platforms. And then we're going to end the year with Michael Irwin of Docker coming on the show. And we are going to rapid fire everything Docker announced or released this year. We are going to do, this is like Mission Impossible. We have 60 minutes, no BS. It's all just going to be listing what was in this release. What do we do in this release? Oh yeah, you released this tool. I mean, they've done so many things this year. I think it's kind of be ridiculous. We're not going to be able to get through it all, but we're going to try. We might go a little long.
I think that's going to be an awesome show. So
yes. And hopefully you will join me.
I want to thank everyone, our audience, for dialing in regularly, asking questions, awesome questions, posting great comments. Continue to engage with us in the next year, in the new year, and bring your friends. Let them know that they can ask their questions. We get awesome feedback. Let us know what topics you want us to dig into next year, and who you want us to have on the show. And we read all of it. We take it all seriously, and we couldn't be here without y'all. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, people. Well, thanks again, Melissa. We will see you at the next conference. Nirmal, I will see you in the next few weeks. We will be back on this show together. Again, we're always live on Thursdays. Come back Thursday afternoons. If we're not here, you got to go up there to the DevOps server right above Nirmal's head. That's the devops.fan. That's our Discord server where Melissa said she was going to join and hang out all through Christmas and learn everything and teach us all MLOps as she's learning it. So not to promise anything on the internet forever, but I kind of just did. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you next week on YouTube Live.
Bye.